Hey guys, welcome back to the Far Better Podcast. I guess I should say for now. I'm your host, Michael Clark, and today I'm going to tell you why I'm quitting. I started this podcast when I was in local work, as I mentioned last week, and I kind of figured out that 7 sermons with about 3 points per sermon obviously comes out to 21 episodes. And that meant that just one time I needed to have a sermon that had a 4th point. And so every week, I'm writing at least one new sermon. Sometimes I'd have 2 if Ryan were out of town when we were working together. We did a co-ministry, which is really kind of underrated. People don't talk about it as much, but Ryan would preach one service, I'd preach the other, and then we'd flip the next week, and I'd preach the service he'd preached the week before, and he preached the service I'd preached the week before. But on occasion when he was gone or we had the ability, I have an extra sermon. Sometimes I was writing 2 a week like a normal preacher workload would call for. And so I had basically the ability to try to theme my sermons. And there was one year at Somerville where every sermon that I did was a theme. I've never done that since. I think that was a little ambitious, and I got out of local work in 2021 when I came over here to MSOP, which is the work that we are partnered with, a work of the Memphis School of Preaching. And I began to kind of notice as I was going through my seasons that it is not the easiest thing to do. I mean, for example, in the middle of season 2, I left. I have done 6 seasons with the Memphis School of Preaching as my main job. Season 1 was obviously back in January of 2021, and then by the middle of July, it was announced, or I was told, I guess I should say I announced it. Let me get the dates right here. September the 1st, I announced that I was leaving Somerville, or the 5th. And since then, I have been working for the school for 3 years at this point in time. I just started my 4th year back in October. And it has been hard to put together themes and sit down and write new podcasts every single, year. You do 22 episodes twice sometimes, and that means you're doing at least 21, but the end of the year, a lot of times those episodes are a 22 episode season. And you're doing between 43 and 44 podcasts a year. And I did a pretty good job when I had some of the guests on. I mean, I had guests from season 3 all the way through season 4. And then I did my road signs as a theme because that's one of the gospel meeting themes that I've got. And I've since even added a sign to that schedule amount of sermons. I wish I could go back and re-record that. And then I also, the next, podcast season 6, I thought, I don't know that I have anything. So I decided to go with my favorite sermons so far. And I did some of the sermons that I enjoyed preaching the most. And I picked, I believe it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I realized at the end of that, I was supposed to have another episode recorded for the 22nd episode, and I didn't do that. So I went with Will There Be an Antichrist at the End Times, a paper I had to write in my master's coursework. And I got to season 7 and knew that I wanted to do something that was already planned out. So I did Letters to Asia, learning from the 7 churches of Asia. And I got halfway through that season, and I began to think about, what am I going to do for season 8? And that's when it kind of dawned on me that this is not easy anymore. Not that it was ever easy in the sense that I didn't have to struggle or study or work hard, but I'm maybe assigned in some of the places that I'm privileged to speak throughout the year. I am maybe assigned 7 total sermons a year that I don't have something written on or that I need to kind of come at from a different angle. But the, dates of when those sermons are to be preached are often way after our turn-in date for the network or way after the time for me to be recording a new season. And so I began to kind of think about what I heard in preaching school and the same thing that I had kind of taken through with Somerville when I left. And I talked about it with Wayne earlier this season. You'll know when to quit. You'll know when to leave. You'll know when it's time to do something different. And so I sat down and planned season 8. Far better by quitting. And it was a good experience. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I had the chance to do it. And I am so thankful that I get to go out on my own terms. I'm thankful that we've had a great group of listeners. And like I said, don't unsubscribe because next week I'm going to tell you my plans for what I'm doing next. But I want to go ahead and tell you this. Season 8 is not the final season. Sometimes TV shows will tell you, hey, we've been approved for seasons 4 through 6, and 6 will be the last season. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I approved season 9 and 10. And we're going to go through the Old Testament in season 9 and look at different characters. And we're going to go through the New Testament in season 10, looking at characters. And these are characters that I didn't get to finish at Lessons from a Park Bench. I quit doing that show and had not finally, hadn't finalized everything the way that I would have wanted it to be. And so, here it is, episode 171, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you that there are 41 more episodes scheduled to come out. 42, I guess. Maybe. I might be wrong, but let me see. 21 in season 10 and 22 in season 9, I believe. And then that'll be it. 215 total episodes on the Scattered Abroad Network for the Far Better Podcast under that banner. But it'll actually be 257 total shows. I miscounted last week. I thought I'd only done 27, but I did 42 episodes. And then that will be the end of this particular podcast and its run. Next week, I'll tell you what I'm going to do next and what's happening next and kind of why I feel like this is the right time to do this. But until then, I'm going to say again, thank you. Thank you for listening. I hope you'll stick with me those final 2 seasons and for what I'm going to be planning to do next. Until next week, let's not forget to please God now so our eternity can be far better.